There are 14 car brands on Britain's roads right now that stand accused of lying to every single driver who ever trusted them. And the bill for that lie has just been valued at £6 billion. Here is the part nobody wants you to sit with. The car at the centre of these allegations might be parked on your driveway tonight, and you may well have paid extra for the privilege of owning it. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which 14 brands are in the dock, how the deception is alleged to have worked, whether your diesel is one of the 1.6 million already caught up in it, and what the reckoning that is coming in 2026 actually means for your money. Before we dive in, comment where you're watching from and click subscribe. Picture a family outside Leeds in 2014. They walk into a showroom and they do the responsible thing. They choose diesel. The salesman tells them it is the clean choice, the green choice, the sensible choice. Lower emissions, lower tax, better for the planet, better for their conscience. They pay a premium for it. And for the next decade, that car, the one they were told was clean, is alleged to have pumped out toxic nitrogen oxide on the open road at levels the claimants say reached up to 40 times the legal limit, while sailing through every official test with a perfectly clean sheet. They did not get unlucky. According to the case now being fought in the High Court, they were sold a lie that was engineered, tested, and signed off long before the keys ever changed hands. That is not bad luck. That, the claimants allege, is the business model. This is Ripped Off Britain, the channel that reads the court filings so you do not have to. And what is sitting in those filings right now is, by some measures, the largest consumer legal action in the entire history of England and Wales. So let me take you inside it, piece by piece. Here is the first thing you need to understand, because it is the thing that makes this scandal land harder in Britain than almost anywhere else on earth. Buying a diesel in this country was never a personal quirk. It was government policy. In 2001, Chancellor Gordon Brown rebuilt the entire car tax system around carbon dioxide, and because diesels produce less CO2 per mile, the state effectively paid you to buy one. Cheaper road tax, cheaper company car tax, a national nudge, repeated at budget after budget, that said the responsible Briton drives diesel. The country listened. Diesel climbed from around 14% of new car sales at the turn of the millennium to over 50% by 2014. The number of diesel cars on British roads more than doubled, from 3.5 million to over 8 million. No other major market pushed its own drivers into diesel quite as hard as Britain did, which means that when the allegations of cheating arrived, there was no other country on the continent with quite so many of its citizens left holding the bag. And here is the second British twist. The one that should make you angry. We were warned. Documents prized out of the Treasury years later, under Freedom of Information laws, showed that civil servants knew full well that diesel damaged air quality, and argued against tougher rules anyway, because they did not want the government to be seen as penalising diesel drivers. So the ordinary British motorist did exactly what the British state asked of them, paid more money to do it, and is now alleged to have been deceived by the manufacturers on top of all that. That is a uniquely British way to be ripped off, politely with a tax incentive and with a thank you note. Now, I want to be precise about where all of this is coming from, because a video like this one lives or dies on whether it is accurate. None of this is rumour. The figures and the allegations you're hearing come from 4 places. First, the High Court itself, the Pannox Group litigation, a real trial with real evidence that ran for 10 weeks from October to December 2025, with closing arguments heard in March 2026. Second, the claimant's own barristers, speaking on the record in open court. Thomas de la Mare, King's Counsel, told the court that each player in the industry took a conscious decision that customer convenience and sales mattered more than preventing pollution, and that they would rather cheat than comply with the law. Third, the public health data, including a 2025 study that linked excess nitrogen oxide emissions to roughly 124,000 premature deaths across the UK and Europe, alongside nearly 100,000 new cases of childhood asthma. And fourth, the established record on Volkswagen, which is not an allegation at all. It is settled fact, and we will come to it. But first, one crucial line, and I will say it plainly so that nobody can accuse me of skipping past it. The 14 manufacturers deny wrongdoing. They call the case fundamentally misconceived. Mercedes says its systems were justifiable on technical and legal grounds. Renault and the Stellantis group say their vehicles complied with the regulations of the time. A judge will rule on liability, and that ruling is expected in the summer of 2026. So everything I am about to describe about these newer defendants is an allegation being tested in court, not a verdict. The reason this case exists at all, though, is the one company that already lost. To understand the alleged trick, you first have to understand the machine. In the old days, a diesel was a simple, honest, agricultural sort of engine. Loud, slow, almost unkillable, and genuinely frugal. The engine of taxis and tractors and people who counted every mile to the gallon. Then the world decided that diesel should also be clean, and that is exactly where it got complicated. From 2014, European law, the standard known as Euro 6, demanded that diesels slash their output of nitrogen oxide, the toxic gas that scars human lungs. To hit those numbers, engineers bolted on genuine technology: exhaust gas recirculation, which feeds spent gas back through the engine to cool the burn, particulate filters to trap the soot, and selective catalytic reduction systems, the ones that inject the fluid you know as AdBlue to chemically neutralize the gas before it leaves the exhaust. Done properly, all of it works. It really does clean the car. The problem is that running all of it, all of the time, costs something. It hurts fuel economy. It clogs and wears the components. It dulls performance, and it eats into the very tax-friendly figures the cars were being advertised on. And so, the claimants allege a shortcut was taken right across the industry. It has a name. It is called a defeat device, and the cleverest version of it is something called a thermal window. Here is how it is alleged to work in plain English. The car's software is set so that the full emissions cleaning only runs inside a narrow band of outside temperatures, and conveniently, that band lines up almost exactly with the mild, controlled temperature used in the official laboratory test. Run the car in the lab, on that gentle, predictable test cycle, at that comfortable temperature, and the cleaning is at full blast. The car looks angelic. Now drive that same car on a cold British morning in February, or on a hot motorway in July, or basically anywhere outside that narrow window, which is to say, the real world most of the time. And the claimants allege that the cleaning quietly throttles back, supposedly to protect the engine, and the nitrogen oxide pours out. Same car. Two completely different personalities. One for the examiner, one for the open road. The test saw a saint. Your children's lungs got the sinner, and the gas at the centre of all this is not some harmless puff of exhaust. Nitrogen oxide inflames the airways, it triggers and worsens asthma, and it is tied directly to heart disease, to strokes, and to early death, which is exactly why those public health figures I mentioned a moment ago run all the way into the six figures. So understand precisely what was allegedly being switched off the instant nobody was testing. It was not a luxury feature. It was the one thing standing between these engines and the lungs of every person walking, cycling, and pushing a pram along behind them. That is the beating heart of this entire case. Not that the cars were dirty by accident, but that they were allegedly designed to know precisely when they were being watched, and to behave only then. So who, exactly, is in the dock? The litigation names 14 manufacturer groups, and the court selected 5 of them to be tried first as lead defendants, because their answer effectively binds everyone behind them. Lead defendant 1 is Mercedes-Benz, the brand that built its entire identity on engineering integrity, now sitting as the face of this trial, accused of fitting devices it insists were technically and legally justified. One of the claimants paid a premium for a Mercedes SUV back in 2018, specifically because he believed it was the greener choice, and he has said publicly that it turned out to be an absolute lie. Lead defendant 2 is Ford, Britain's default family car for 3 generations. Its diesels alleged to have carried the same trick. Lead defendant 3 is the Stellantis pairing of Peugeot and Citroën, the French staples of the British school run. Lead defendant 4 is Renault, and lead defendant 5 is Nissan, the alliance whose diesels filled millions of British driveways, and in Nissan's case were built by British hands in Sunderland. Those 5 are being tried right now. Bound to their outcome, waiting in the wings are 9 more, and you will recognise every single name on this list. Vauxhall and Opel, perhaps the most British-feeling mark of the lot, a brand stitched into this country's industrial story, also accused. Volkswagen and Porsche, and we will come back to Volkswagen in a moment because they are the ghost at this entire feast. Jaguar Land Rover, Britain's own luxury champion, BMW, Volvo, the brand that has sold itself for decades on safety and conscience, Fiat Chrysler and Suzuki, Hyundai and Kia, Toyota and Mazda. 14 groups in total, nearly every manufacturer that matters in this country. As the claimant's own solicitor, Martin Day of the firm Lee Day, put it, this is much wider than Volkswagen. It is nearly all the manufacturers in this country. Hold that thought, and now look at the one case that is already decided, because it is the entire reason none of this can be waved away as a fishing expedition. Volkswagen. In September 2015, American regulators caught Volkswagen red-handed, using software that detected the test and switched on the full emissions controls only when the car knew it was being examined. That is not an allegation. It was proven, it was admitted. In 2020, the High Court here in Britain ruled that Volkswagen had indeed used a defeat device, in breach of European rules. Volkswagen then settled with British drivers for £193 million, paid out to around 91,000 UK claimants. Globally, the bill for that single company has now sailed past £27 billion. So the next time somebody tells you that a defeat device is a conspiracy theory, the correct answer is that it is a matter of court record for one brand already. The entire question now being fought out in London is a simple one. Was Volkswagen the exception, or was Volkswagen the template? Before we get to the reckoning and to what all of this means for your own wallet, I want to hear from you directly, because the comments on videos like this one tell a story the manufacturers would much rather you did not assemble for yourselves. Drop a comment right now, and tell me two things. What diesel did you buy, and what year did you buy it, believing it was the clean, sensible, responsible choice? My guess is that a great many of you are going to name a car you were specifically advised to buy for the good of the environment, and I am going to guess that a significant number of you bought it somewhere between 2009 and 2015, right in the heart of the window this case covers. That is not a coincidence. That is the dash for diesel, working exactly as it was designed to work. Now, the part you actually came here for. Are you in this? And what is the reckoning actually worth? The claim covers, broadly, diesel vehicles built between roughly 2009 and 2020 from any of those 14 manufacturer groups where the driver bought, leased or financed the car. 1.6 million British drivers are already signed up, which is precisely why this is being described as the largest group action England and Wales has ever seen. The case as a whole has been valued at around £6 billion, and the court has split it cleanly into two halves. The first half, heard across late 2025 and due to be decided in the summer of 2026, answers one single question. Did these companies fit unlawful defeat devices, yes or no? If the answer comes back yes for the lead 5, the 9 manufacturers behind them are effectively caught in the very same net. Only then comes the second half, the part where a court sits down and decides how much each affected driver is actually owed. That compensation trial is currently penciled in for late 2026 and beyond. If drivers win, the money is meant to reflect 3 separate things. The premium you overpaid for a clean car that allegedly never was one, the value your diesel hemorrhaged as the entire world turned against it, and the plain fact of having been misled about the single thing you were paying extra for. That is the resolution. After a full decade, a British court is finally going to put a number on the lie. So here are the rules I want you to write down somewhere, because this is the point where being informed quietly turns into being protected. Rule 1. Check whether your car is in scope before you ever assume that it is not. If you owned, leased, or financed a diesel from any of those 14 groups built roughly between 2009 and 2020, you are potentially eligible, and crucially, you do not need to still own the car today. Sold it years ago, you may still be in. Rule 2. You can join a claim on a no-win, no-fee basis, but read the terms before you sign, because the law firms running these actions take a percentage of any payout, and that percentage is not small. Know exactly what you're handing over before you hand it over. The industry is quietly counting on you to either not bother or to not read the fine print. Do neither. Rule 3, and this is the one that almost nobody actually acts on. Do not let a manufacturer, a dealer, or a broker talk you into a quiet individual settlement that makes you sign away your right to the group claim. A single lone driver has almost no leverage at all. 1.6 million drivers, standing behind a High Court judgment, have every bit of it. The power in this case is the sheer size of the number. Do not trade away your share of that number for a smaller check that happens to arrive this month. Let me put the real cost in front of you, because the sticker price was never once the whole story. Take a driver who bought a mid-range diesel, brand new, back in 2013. They paid, let us say, a few £100 extra at the showroom for the diesel engine over the equivalent petrol, sold to them squarely as the economical, responsible choice. For years afterwards, they paid lower road tax, which was the reward the government had dangled in front of them. So far, on paper at least, diesel is winning the argument. Now run the real ledger. When the scandal finally broke and the cities turned against diesel, that same car's resale value fell straight off a cliff, costing the owner thousands of pounds the moment they came to sell it. Then arrived the clean air zones. Drive a non-compliant older diesel into London's ultra-low emission zone today, and it is £12.50 every single day, and city after city has followed London's lead. A driver commuting into a charging zone can lose well over £3,000 in a single year, purely for the privilege of owning the car they were actively encouraged to buy. Now stack the collapsed resale value and the relentless daily charges against that modest early tax saving, and the arithmetic turns brutal. The sensible choice quietly became one of the single most expensive decisions a British motorist could have made in the last 20 years. The tax break was the bait, the total cost of ownership was the trap, and nobody, not once, put that number on the windscreen. So let me bring this all the way home. For more than a decade, British drivers were steered into diesel by their own government, charged a premium by the manufacturers for the privilege of complying, and then, according to a case now sitting in the highest civil court in the land, deceived about the one single thing they were paying for. The cars passed the test and failed the road. The 14 brands deny it and a judge will decide. But the one brand that has already lost has shown us, in detail, exactly what the inside of that lie looks like. This was never about a handful of faulty cars. If the claimants are proven right, it was a system, designed, tested and signed off, that treated the British driver as the easiest mark in all of Europe. That is not bad luck. That, the claimants say, is the business model. And in 2026, for the very first time, the business model itself is the thing standing in the dock. If this video helped you understand what is really parked on your driveway, subscribe now and send it to anyone who still believes their diesel was the clean choice. Because they deserve to know the truth before that check or that charge lands on the mat. That is all.